call our meeting to order tonight. Renata, if you do the roll call, please.
Evans. Here. Ettinger.
Here.
McEvers.
Here.
Gookin.
Yeah.
Miller. Here. English.
Here. If we could rise for the invocation, we have Pastor Peabody from the Grace Bible Church here tonight.
Oh God, our Father, you are the creator of the heavens and the earth, and so we give you credit for the beautiful country we live in. We invite you tonight to be at this meeting and to influence it for the good of our people here and for your own glory. We pray this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Woody, lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don't believe we have any amendments to the agenda tonight, so we will move on to the presentations. And we have the 2017-2018 snow plan. Tim Martin.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Tonight, I'm in front of you to talk about the snow plan, but to begin with, I'd like to throw out a little advertising for the Leaf Fest 2017. That will start next Monday. We start at the south side of town here and work our way north. The snow that we received should not hinder our work and our ability, and we should be able to get them out and get them picked up on time. Again, this year we're going to take them out to the airport. We are doing some soil amendment testing out there. This is the same area that we worked last year. We had great feedback from the county and the extension office out there, and we're going to continue that program. For the citizens out there, you can go to our website. On there you can click and the zones, and it'll tell you tentatively when we'll be there, and that should help a lot of citizens. We get a lot of calls, but if you go to the website and click on the link on our website, it will bring this map up and it'll show you where everything is and how we're progressing. So this year, for some of the highlights I'd like to talk to is, in this plan, snow is an emergency situation. We will work around the clock to clear the snow off our roads. Plowing operations either start with 4 to 5 inches on the road or 2 inches and more snow coming. Many of you that have been in this area, we can get a 4-inch snowstorm. We got 7 inches this weekend, and the roads, other than a couple hills and some bridge decks, we really didn't have to address much. We worked this plan by priorities. The hospital, all our hills, major arterials, collectors, the bus routes, and then we move into the residentials if we need to. The goal is 30 hours. We keep extensive notes, and over the last 10 years, we've averaged 29.4 hours on all our citywide plows. Bare pavement is not our goal. Our goal is to make it safe, passable. We always want to achieve bare pavement. We work towards bare pavement, especially on our arterials, but it's not the goal. We want safe roads. We don't plow from the alleys. We don't plow the alleys out. We don't have the type of equipment or the manpower to get in without obstructing where garbage cans and or fences and things like that. Residents, we encourage them to keep their cars off the roads when we're out plowing, and we ask that you clear your sidewalks. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. there's an ordinance in place. We're more than willing, if there's a charitable organization or anybody out there, that just give us a call, and we'd be more than happy to put your name on the website for people to be able to help contact, and of course, help your neighbors when they need help on those things. Communication's what it's all about. We use the website, Facebook, we're going to be on Channel 19, we put plans out in the library, the police station, we build strong relationships with the local media, we have a snow line that we keep current, and we will respond to any emails and/or calls as quickly as possible. Every snowstorm, we do an operator critique. We talk about things that went well, things that we could do better, things that we saw out there that need attention. We also run the right equipment. You are one of, excuse me, maybe a dozen cities in the United States that use these loader gates. They do not eliminate but reduce the size of the berms in your driveways. The numbers, on an average, 10-year average, we do 8 citywide plows a year and 13 arterials. As you can see, our numbers there. There are things that are challenging. Be ready. Avoid travel if you can, and keep your cars off the road and your sidewalks cleared. What's winter going to bring us? Farmer's Almanac, they're saying cold and snowy. Thank you. AccuWeather is kind of saying rain and snow, little Arctic cold. For those skiers out there, there's kind of your jet stream. That's what they're predicting for the winter, and it's going to be wetter than normal is what they're saying. One of the fun things we do, reach out to the schools, and we name all our storms. This year, the theme is Explorers. The first measurable plowable snow will be Amerigo. Balboa and Cortez. If we get to Lewis, it's going to be a long winter. Some of the things that we see out there, please try to get your vehicles off the road. We're going to be somewhat aggressive, work with code enforcement to try to get some of these vehicles moved that sit there all winter long. Here's a slide I took a few years ago, but you can just see this is south of the cemetery, but how narrow it is. The cars that haven't moved for a while, there's still garbage cans out, and there's actually a boat parked there. And so help us out here. Try to get these cars moved and off the road. Another one is the fire hydrants. We try to keep it clean, but, help us out there to clear those when you can as you're doing your sidewalks. Kind of who we are, the policy and directions driven by the council and mayor and citizens, and a lot of collaboration. But the action and the results come from the people that are out there in the field, and they're the ones that deserve most of the credit, and they work very hard to be successful out there. Again, customer service, there's a real voice there from 7 to 3:30, Monday through Friday. We'll respond to things. We're always looking for resolution. We're not going to pass you off to someone else for your answers. With that, the department thanks the opportunity to serve the citizens of Coeur d'Alene. And with that, I would stand for questions, Mayor.
Questions for Tim? Amy?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I just wanted to thank you and your team for all of your hard work, for making the city safe, and last year was a challenge, and you guys are just amazing, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Kiki?
Tim, I just wanted to clarify something. When we talked about this ordinance, that it isn't the city's or the ordinance's intent to exacerbate somebody who's had a problem that somebody's having trying to clear a sidewalk, and that our website used to have, I think it listed the county or something, that somebody who was disabled or in an unusual, recovery situation or elderly could contact to get help with sidewalk snow removal, but they aren't doing that any longer. So are there active help links there now?
I do know that the senior citizen, the senior center helps many people that are in need with those kinds of issues. And again, if there's an organization or some kids or just people that want to help,
They can
please give us,
contact us and-
contact us, and we'll get their names on the website for that
If
assistance.
they'd like to assist somebody as a service project or something, that would be great, and I appreciate you reviewing that again.
Any other questions? Dan?
Well, I think I would just say on the, I can understand where it can be tough for the sidewalk shoveling, and, we'll do a workaround, but when it comes to the vehicles and the boats on the street that it piles up, when we, I guess I, for one, sitting up here, I'm willing to take the heat. I'm happy to hear that we're going to have more aggressive enforcement on that. I think that people appreciate that. I don't, as far as if you're going to leave your car there, you can't expect to leave it there, for long periods of time, and they got to dig it out, and that's just not safe. And so that, I hope we do be more aggressive on that, and if I have to field the phone calls, I'm fine with that. And I guess the other thing, just on behalf of my neighbor, so it's not true that you plow the council and mayor streets first? So people who live close to us, they're not going to get any extra break either, okay?
No, that's
Wait, who
not-
said that? So,
I can't speak for the chief if I could have a moment. Code enforcement is in PD, but we work very closely with his code enforcement officer, and as he has time, he's going to go out and help us with some of those vehicles.
good.
Okay?
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions for Tim? All right, thank you very much, appreciate it. Move on to the consent calendar.
Mr.
We
Mayor,
have
I'd
to
like
make a
to...
motion.
Oh,
We have to approve the snow plan,
thank you for keeping me on task here.
certainly.
So we do need a motion to
Well,
approve.
I'll
the-
make the motion since I'm the nosy one who pointed it out.
Okay,
I would move that we approve the 2017-2018 snow plan as presented.
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Now, consent
Mayor, I'd like
calendar.
to approve the consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 17067. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call, please, Renata.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Eddinger,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes?
Motion carried. Now is the time that we have for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council can come up and would have 3 minutes to do so on any city business item. Anyone wishing to come up and give public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to announcements. Any member of the council have an announcement for tonight?
Well, I'll say something, which will make you nervous. No, I just wanted to say good luck to everyone. I know we have an election tonight, and you still have about 2 hours to go out to the polls, which is going to be low. This turnout's going to be really low, and I know Dan is always into this because he ran the elections here for so long, but that's kind of sad. You guys run unopposed, you don't have any opponents, which is a great pat on the back. You guys are doing a good job if no one's running against you, but then no one shows up to vote for you. So I wish you all the best and everything. Don't be too nervous. Don't get too drunk. All right, okay?
Did you vote?
Oh, yes, I voted, and I filled in all the circles.
Oh, okay.
All the
All
circles.
right. Anyone have anything else? I have an appointment tonight. I'd like to appoint Teresa Runge to the Arts Commission.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Teresa Runge to the Arts Commission. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. We will move on to other business. We have authorization of grant application for STOP grant and VOCA grant for 2 victim advocate positions. Chief White.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I have tonight is just a request to apply for 2 separate grants that would assist us in trying to get victim advocates here in our city. These grants typically have some very short deadlines. As it turns out, after I wrote this staff report, the STOP grant opened up. And so we're in the process of gathering information for that grant and that sort of thing. Just a little bit of background. Last year, in 2016, the Coeur d'Alene Police Department responded to 904 calls for service that were coded initially as domestic violence related. Under our current system, crime victim advocates typically, well, let me back up just a little bit. In each of those 904 calls for service, when an officer responds to them, they are obligated to give members of the family that they respond to a pamphlet of information regarding how to contact community-based victim advocacy programs and also how to get an order of protection and things of that nature. In speaking with the folks over at Safe Passage, last year they served a total of 109 court or system referred patients or clients. So between that difference there, between 904 calls for service and Safe Passage only seeing 109 different people, means we're obviously missing the boat on a great deal of a great number of folks that we could provide service to. The parameters of these grants are a little bit different. We are still waiting for the VOCA grant application to come out so we can get some information on that, but the STOP grant is one, like I said, that just recently came out. The formula that they use typically for that one is a 75% grant with a 25% city match, although they do the math a little bit funny. And the 25% match from the city can be from a variety of sources. It can be just straight benefits and wage match, or you can use equipment and other related type items. To give you an idea, numbers-wise, we were able to put this together. If we take, working with our Human Resources Department, a victim's advocate would be placed at a level 10, according to the BDPA recommendations. When we were doing the math, in order just to give you the most, I'm not sure if conservative is the right word, but the worst-case scenario, that position, along with the maximum family benefits, would be roughly, including benefits, $64,000 a year. That's only $18.55 an hour. Our portion for 2 positions would be $52,000, and the total grant application then would be for $155,722. Remember, that was just on the STOP grant. The VOCA grant, we have the ability of, at some point, hopefully, to grab additional funds to pay for pamphlets and other materials and that sort of thing. Like I said in the beginning, though, this is not a request to accept the grant or anything of that nature. We just want to apply for it and see if we're successful in our application. If so, come back to you with the numbers and see if council is willing to go down that road.
Questions for Chief? Ron?
When will we hear about this?
The grant solicitation, I believe, ends, I think it's in 2 weeks. It closes in 2 weeks. Typically, we would have an answer in January with an award sometime in, it's either late March or early April. And after that, it would still take us an additional 2 months to fill the position through hiring and recruiting and that sort of thing. So we are looking at very little impact at all this fiscal year. And frankly, if we were awarded this grant, I have no doubt that we could absorb the remainder in our budget that you guys have already allocated for the police department. It would just be subsequent years that we would mostly be discussing at that point.
Woody?
Chief, so there's 2 different grants. Are they the same, 25%, and you're going for both of them?
Well, we want to apply for both of them, yes, sir. It's a little bit different than what I'm used to. Here in Idaho, typically, the majority of the personnel-related funding will come from the STOP grant, and the equipment and brochures and things like that were typically funded through the VOCA grant, which is completely 180 degrees from where I came from. The Victim Services Unit down in Arizona, for instance, was funded almost entirely through the VOCA grant, once again with a 75%, 25 match.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So how much money are we talking about?
Total for the grant for 2 positions, the grant portion would be $155,722. The city's portion, if we were to have two full-time positions at the maximum amount of benefits, that's with family benefits, our portion would be $54,000 a year.
Okay. Well, this is something that's really important, and it's come up, I believe there was an article in the paper talking about victims' rights and the state wanting to do something about that, and I know that it's something that we come short on, because we concentrate more on the bad guys than really the people who are kind of left there hanging with all the baggage. So this would help address that issue?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Wonderful.
In my opinion, there's a lot more we could be doing for our victims in our community. You know, our detectives and our officers do a phenomenal job getting through the process, but frankly, they're so busy with the number of cases they have, the number of calls that are pending and that sort of thing, there's only so much time we can spend with the victim. And so really what we do now is we refer them to community-based services such as CASA or Safe Passage or something of that nature. And of course, if someone is booked into jail, there's a court process that kicks in at some point, but there's a gap there. And frankly, oftentimes victims are reluctant to, you get a pamphlet from a police officer to take that next step, where the victim advocates really take and help the victims of those crimes navigate through the process and figure out how to get an order of protection and figure out how to put together a safety plan so if something recurs, you're safer and those sorts of things. In my previous life, we were very successful at this. I will tell you, the victim advocates not only helped keep a number of folks safe, we heard stories on a very regular basis of victims that were not harmed, again, where the suspect was actively trying to do that sort of thing because of the victim advocacy program. And not only that, occasionally the victim advocates will receive information that a victim is reluctant to tell a law enforcement officer or detective. They get information and without divulging information that they really can't divulge, instead they tell the detective, you really ought to ask her about what happened in December of 2014. Just to get the ball rolling, and it makes a difference.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief?
I just had a couple things. One is I work with a lot of nonprofits, and one thing that worries me about grants is when someone gets a large grant and then the grant money runs out and then there's a void left in the community. So I know you and I touched base on that, and I know you have some plans on how that's going to work well in the future. I also I think it's important to note, I talked with the executive director at Safe Passage, and I want to commend you because it wasn't in your staff report, but she said that you have been reaching out to her to work with the services that they provide so that there isn't a duplication in services, and she's very happy to help you with training for advocacy so that that program stays strong during this grant cycle and into the future. So I think that's an important component to, and hopefully that you get this grant, but I think that's an important component for the community to know that those two things are happening concurrently and working well together to not duplicate what's going on and harm either product. So
Yes, ma'am.
I
As to your
appreciate
second point, it's important for us that we have a handoff and not a kind of a duplication of effort. And so the conversations that we've had with this community-based services are trying to minimize that part, make sure we don't have any duplication. As far as the stability of employment and that sort of thing, if we're successful in our application and receive the funds during the recruitment process, will make it very clear that this is a grant-funded position. However, I will tell you, it's fairly stable. Post Falls, for instance, has had 2 victims advocates in their police department for a long period of time through this STOP grant. And so I have no doubt that we're going to put our best foot forward and try to be successful in this grant. And if we get it, we're certainly do the requirements to maintain the funds keep coming in.
great. Well, I appreciate the cooperative effort, so thank you.
Any other questions for the Chief? If you're looking for.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we approve the application for the STOP grant and a VOCA grant for 2 victim advocate positions.
Second?
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Gookin,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Eddinger,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes?
McEvers.
Yes.
Motion carried. Now we're on to resolution number 17-068, approval of memorandum of agreements regarding police officer authority with Kootenai, Boundary, Bonner, and Shoshone counties.
Okay. This one's going to take just a few minutes for me to explain before I finally get to really what I'm requesting. Idaho code currently only allows officers to leave their jurisdiction, which in our case would be the city limits for the city of Coeur d'Alene, under 3 circumstances. Number 1, we receive a request for assistance from an outside entity. Number 2, if there's an immediate threat of serious bodily injury occurring directly in front of us, meaning a felony, say an armed robbery or a kidnapping or something of that nature. Or number 3, when we're in fresh pursuit, meaning we are chasing someone for another, once again, a felony, and they happen to leave our jurisdiction. What this does not allow for, however, is continuing investigations. I gathered a number of stats. What I did is I asked our investigative division to track the number of times that they needed to go outside the city of Coeur d'Alene over a 2-month period from September 1st until October 31st of this year. And during that time period, our officers needed to leave our jurisdiction for a total of 36 different incidents. These weren't your, small type incidents. Let me give you an example of some of them. There were 3 different sexual assault cases, 6 cases involving school threats. There were 4 robberies, 2 aggravated battery cases, 1 burglary, 3 different eluding cases, 1 strangulation case, 1 domestic battery, things of that nature. I'm not talking about us wanting to leave our jurisdiction on a regular basis to perform routine police services, because the code already does not allow that sort of thing. What we're asking is for us to approach the sheriffs of other counties and ask permission to enter into an agreement with them, predominantly so we don't deplete their resources if we have an event that happens. We've had an agreement in place with Kootenai County now for several years. This was signed by Chief Longo and Ben Wolfinger many, many years ago, and I feel it was important to update that. When we were going through this process, we thought it was probably a good idea that we do it with the other northern counties as well. We've had an opportunity on several occasions to need to go to outside counties, and this would assist us in those efforts. I have not received information back from a couple of the county sheriffs, but it sounds like anecdotally, at least the 2 counties north of us are willing to listen and engage in a memorandum of understanding regarding this. And I know Ben Wolfinger is. There's 2 other counties that we touch here that I have not heard from. So once again, this just is requesting permission to enter into a memorandum of agreement with those counties so we can perform our jobs under certain narrow, limited circumstances.
Question for Chief White. Woody?
So is the tribe included in that, Chief? Coeur d'Alene tribe?
No, we have not entered into an agreement with them. We haven't included them. I know the Sheriff's Department currently has an agreement with them, and once again, if we receive a request for assistance to go down there and assist, we can.
Okay.
The tribe there's some nuances associated with going down there and performing law enforcement activity. The Sheriff's Department has an agreement with them, and their officers are cross-deputized, but there are some nuances associated with us going down there.
The other question is, this sounds like a mutual aid agreement. Is it that or more? Or
It is. It's
less?
very similar. So, for instance, the Kelly Peace homicide that we had this last year, there were 4 different locations that we needed to go to simultaneously, all of them outside of our county, and not only interview individuals who were there, but also potentially perform surveillance to see if the suspect was going to show up at any of those places. That would have severely taxed the resources of that county. And so what we ended up doing, frankly, is using members of our department who are cross-deputized with the federal government. This is something that we tried to have an amendment that would change Idaho code in the last legislative session. It was introduced by Luke Malik and then subsequently pulled for a different reason. We're going to try again this legislative session, and frankly, it would probably be more important or more appropriate for it to be handled in Idaho code. But Idaho code does allow us to enter into an agreement to kind of get around that.
Thank you.
Ron?
What about Spokane County? You have any agreement with them?
The Sheriff's Department does. We have a number of members with our department who are cross-deputized with the U.S. Marshals who are allowed to go under under certain circumstances. And Idaho code does allow us to leave our jurisdiction under fresh pursuit. But still, once again, under mutual aid compacts like Woody's talking about, if we get a request for assistance, we can go over there and assist under, a big emergency or something like that. If we were pursuing someone from our agency and they happen to go all the way into Washington, we would be allowed to do that.
Any other questions for Chief White? If not, we'd be looking for a council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of Resolution 17068, approving memorandum of agreement regarding police officer authority with Kootenai, Boundary, Bonner, and Shoshone counties.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
English,
Yes.
Eddinger,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Motion carried. Thank you, Lee. Now we have resolution number 17-069, approval of a public transportation letter of agreement with Kootenai County for the period of October 1, 2017 through September 30 of 2018. Troy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I bring to you tonight an agreement that we've been entered into for a number of years to provide public transportation in our county. It's an outstanding partnership. Back in 2000, the census designated the cities of Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Hayden, Hutter, Dalton Gardens as an urbanized area within our great county. The Kootenai County Transit System encompasses that. We call it CityLink, a fixed route service. We partner with Kootenai Health and their transportation, a paratransit service, and we work through the urbanized areas of our county. So Kootenai County oversees it. We are looking to enter into this agreement. There's other players involved in this, including the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organizations and the Post Falls Highway District. So the Federal Transit Administration is the one that the Kootenai County staff members report to and build all of these partnerships. What we are looking at is an increase this year to what we have been providing over the last, it's probably at least 10 years. So the increase is $15,000 for a total of $58,983. The Kootenai County Transit System had notified us about this. We brought it forward in your financial plan. What the $15,000 increase equates to is an added bus line service on Saturdays from 9 to 4. Post Falls is also contributing to the dollars necessary to run this, and they've approved it as well. Coeur d'Alene is looking at it tonight, and we are helping our neighbors to the north that did not bring any funding into this bus route. Our friends in Hayden did not bring any money. So you are carrying a little bit more burden because of that. So again, it's matched funds. We supply in the total budget very small percentage, about 3%. We've used this particular partnership and put together basically a grant that Specialized Needs Recreation has taken advantage of. So we've done some things with those federal dollars to help out other organizations in moving people around. So about 132,000 people in the last year have taken advantage of that fixed route bus system. It tends to move in ridership based on the economy. The economy is better now and ridership has declined. You could almost track the price of gas next to the ridership, and it falls pretty close to, as the price hits a certain point, the ridership goes up, and as the price of gas comes down.
So I have a council member that is shaking his head because he sees these numbers as well, and we've had some dialogue. So I would stand for any questions you might have.
Woody?
So I'm reading here all these great folks that they've met face-to-face, Post Falls Food Bank, Post Falls Senior Center, Kroc Center, Kootenai County Veterans Services, Tash Mountain States Head Start, Heritage Health, Harmony House. Do these guys contribute money?
Not all of them, no.
So just the cities on this level?
On this level, it would be the cities, correct. So they are seeking input from folks that might have colleagues or folks that they work with on improvements that could be done to this paratransit system. Are the bus stop locations in the best areas? Seeking ways in which to improve the process and getting feedback.
But not necessarily any money.
Not necessarily any money, correct.
Thank you.
Dan?
Well, and I would just add that in my day job, working with seniors, we are one group that, I mean, we have a lot of federal funds that flow through our area agency, and we in turn contract with, for transportation services and help provide some of the money for, like use of the paratransit and different things. So from that point of view, I mean, this is a critical resource in the community, and I'm all for the expansion of any of the service routes and hours, and our firsthand experience of working, with the county transit thing, I mean, is very favorable. So anyway, I'm happy to see this and glad to support. If we haven't raised our contribution in, would you say, 10 years, this is a, pretty small amount, regardless of, year-by-year ridership or not. So anyway, I'll be a yes vote.
Any other questions for Troy?
Mr. Mayor?
Dan?
So, I don't have any questions, but I am the KMPO liaison for the city, and the transit people report to us every month with the ridership, and it parallels gas. So you got to assume from that a lot of the people who take the bus have cars, and when the gas is cheap, they can take their cars, which is good, and it's cool. But I do have some reservations about the agreement and about the way the transit system is run. The agreement basically removes all our accountability and oversight as a city over this system. Now, legally, we could run our own transit system. If you guys really wanted to, we could raise taxes and we could have our own bus system. But the state says that counties run the bus system. So if there's going to be a bus system in a county, it's going to be the county government's responsibility to oversee it, which is what happens now. Further, they get their funding, Woody, from the federal government, about $1.5 million every year to help them run the system, which means they're really tightly bound by Title VI, which is why you saw the list of people who are mentioned there. Those are the people that Title VI wants us to serve with a transit system, which is typically how transit systems work in most cities. So from the federal government and also money from Kootenai County and then money from us. Our money's voluntary. We don't have to give them any money. I'm glad that we upped it because I think the Saturday service is good. It's nice that we're giving the Saturday service. You probably all remember getting a letter, an email from someone who wanted to have Saturday service. They also want to have Sunday service. There's not enough money now to do that. But in a bigger picture, we have this agreement, and the agreement basically says that we are allowing Kootenai County to run a transit system, and goodbye. That's it. We don't have any, beyond that point, once we sign the agreement, as a city, we have no say in the way the transit system is run. If someone comes to us with a complaint about the transit system, we have to send them to the county, even though they're operating the transit system within the city limits. The resolution, the agreement says, Kootenai County, here's the keys, take them. And right now, the way the system is being run, not the bus system, not what the bus system does, but the bureaucracy behind the bus system seems to be more focused on the bureaucracy itself as opposed to serving the customers and going to where the customers are. The point of contact in a bus system is a bus stop. That's where you meet your customers. It's not this holistic approach. It's not this big picture thing. It's about getting a person who lives here to there. And that's about bus stops. And this is something where they've fallen tremendously short on dealing with where the bus stops go. There wasn't really any logic, in my opinion, on where bus stops go based on where ridership is. So, for example, the bus stop that supposedly services the education corridor is across Northwest Boulevard, and it's up a steep road that is not ADA compliant. So that bus stop is not ADA compliant because it's too steep. Now, I believe that also exposes the city to some legal risk, because if someone, and we do have someone who lives in the county who likes to sue ADA issues, were to approach us, they would say, your bus stop that you authorized, because this resolution basically says, hey, county, go do whatever, exposes us to perhaps being sued for having a non-ADA compliant bus stop on our, in our city. The other issue that's been vexing me for a long time is this transit center out there in Riverstone. And I don't have a problem with putting a transit center in Riverstone. I don't think it's going to be a locus of crime. I read the crime reports every week that the chief sends us. There's no crime there any more than there is anywhere else. There's more crime downtown. So the question, though, on the transit center is that they're building this facility with public money. The process has been going on for 7 years. In 7 years, we did McEwen, we did Four Corners, we're going to finish Celtice. We've done so many projects in the city in the past 7 years, I can't even mention them all. But it's taken them 7 years, and they still haven't broken ground on a transit center. And the transit center is not going to have a lobby for the guests at all. The people who ride the bus are going to have to wait outside in the cold. And I object to that. As a councilman, as a member of KMPO, I have no ability, and this agreement cements it, to go to the transit center people and say, you know, on behalf of the citizens who ride this bus system, can we have a lobby? Can we take a bus stop that's in the wrong spot, that's not ADA compliant, and move it to the right spot? And the reaction has been 100% pushback. I have gotten nowhere. I have met with 2 county commissioners on this topic, and they have gotten nowhere because the staff, the bureaucracy that runs the bus system seems to be more responsive to the federal government than it does to the county government. And of course, this agreement tells us they won't be responsive to us at all. So it leaves me in a very frustrated position in that I want to support this. I agree with Dan. I like public transportation. I want to get people from here to there. You know, one of the great tools that we have as a culture to get people out of poverty is to get them to a job, and this is one of the ways that they do it. So I don't have any objection to a bus system, but I want something that's going to be a little bit more responsive to our citizens. And I'm frustrated because I don't know how to make that happen, because I'm not in county government, and and in city government, we don't have anything to do. We could hold the funding, which would be unfair, because that would probably drop the Saturday service. But I don't know, I'd like to hear if anyone else has any ideas on how to do this. I don't think we can reconfigure the agreement here. Maybe we could, I don't know if we can add some language in there that would give us something, because I don't even know if that would be legal, if we have the authority to say, hey, maybe they have to run things by us, because they really didn't. They had a meeting here in the library. I showed up. I was like one of 5 people who showed up when they were planning this thing, and it was a very passive meeting. They just showed where the stops were going to be and weren't really like, well, what do you think about this stuff? What do you think about this stuff? When we do something, when we wanted to do a dog park up at Epiphany, we went around to everyone who lives around there, and then even then, after it was in the paper, we had people feedback to us and say, hey, you don't want a dog park there. We don't want a dog park there. Well, the transit system didn't do that for any bus stop. They basically planted the flag and said, here's where the bus stop's going to be. Thank you. And so when people are upset or people want a bus stop moved, and not just for the reason, and this is the Title VI issue, you can't just say, well, we don't want those people hanging out in front of our place. You can't use the same reason that they're giving for not having a lobby in the transit center. You have to say, why is this bus stop being ineffective? Well, you know, if the bus stop's supposed to serve the education corridor and it's across the street and 200 yards up the road, then that's probably the wrong place for it. According to their own rider statistics that I read, most people who ride the bus downtown, they get off on Garden because they're probably going to the courthouse for business. Well, they moved that stop too. That stop is actually, it's in front of your restaurant, Mr. Mayor. It's at the corner of River and Hubbard. And so that's the county bus stop. It just doesn't make any sense. So here we are, we're gonna sign an agreement that basically says, you guys do whatever, but we get a complaint. What can we do? Nothing. And I don't know it seems like we're kind of stuck here because that's what the agreement says. You guys run the system and we'll take the calls and take the heat, but we can't do anything. So that's my frustration right now with that, which I realize it's like I'm complaining about an ex-wife or something, but there's really nothing council can do unless you guys have any suggestions or thoughts about, where we can go.
Dan, what's KMPO's connection with that program?
The KMPO, Kootenai County, it's not a radio station. It's a Kootenai County master planning organization. Federal government said that every county has to have one of these things to coordinate all transportation activities within the county. So in our county, we have major cities. We also have 4 highway districts. We have the county itself. We have the tribe. We have ITD. And these are the board members of the KMPO. We take the money that's coming in from federal grants, from state grants, which is just federal money passing through the state. And we distribute it, decide projects that are going to be worked, have a schedule that goes out. It's called a TIP, Transportation Improvement Program, that talks about all the projects that are going to be coming out. So generally, we will hear about the projects before the city does. So when the city comes to us and Chris or Troy or Tim Martin comes up to us and says, hey, we're going to be widening this street, or we're going to be removing some of the traffic lights on 95, I've already heard that. We know that program's coming. So one of the aspects of transportation, of course, is public transportation, a bus system. The airport is also part of the big picture there, too. So we get reports from the county on the transit center. And I've been asking for 2 years when we're going to see the plans for what the transit center is going to look like. And for 2 years, I've been told, well, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. We're going out for bid, all this stuff. It's very frustrating.
I think it would come as a surprise to most people that there's not a place for people to wait for the bus. I think that's what people think that a transit center is for people to get out of the elements, to be able to wait inside for the bus. So I think that comes as a surprise to most folks.
It's frustrating for me, and Commissioner Felios, who also expressed frustration, as does Commissioner Eberline, who serves on the KMPO board. And that's been one of my points of contention. And the only thing I've been able to do just casually is just to say to them, well, as a city, we can always withhold funding. We can always say, you know what, we'll withhold the funding until you promise us that there's going to be a lobby in the transit center, or until, you become more responsive to the citizens. And that's been my idle threat, and knowing full well that there's really nothing. I don't think council would go for that. And it's probably because we haven't had a lot of feedback. I mean, I get a lot of feedback, but I don't know if other people up here have gotten feedback from people who've had complaints, who said, I've tried to deal with the county, I've tried to deal with the transit people, I'm very frustrated, and I get that a lot.
Woody?
So let me go back a little. Troy, help me here. It seems like the tribe came up with the bus system and supported it and asked us all to throw in some money. And we did our own bus stops, didn't we? Didn't we do benches with sponsors on it at one time? And then we got into some cool, I think the Arts Commission helped build some, is this ringing any bells yet?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
We've worked to improve the bus stops for sure, and we looked for neighbors to help with some of the solid waste because it was tough for the drivers to do it. However, when you put concrete down and put a bench on it and then the bus stop moves, it's not really a portable situation, and so that didn't get to be a long-term solution because pockets of our community were using it and then they weren't. So I think there was one at like 8th and Mullen for a period of time. So we kind of backed away from building a stop that was as permanent as that. We moved one off of 4th Street. We have dismantled it completely and have it as an asset, hoping to put it up at Kootenai Health. So yes, we've been partnering on this. I think if I go back 20 years, we were probably spending at least $40,000 on public transit back then. So this partnership has grown to over 132 as a 1,000 people using it is quite a bit less than it was a year ago. So yes, we've worked to improve the system wherever we can.
So along those lines, it seemed that the schedules were changing, the bus routes were changing, the ridership, like you said, up and down, and there's less people riding now than there were 5 years, 6 years ago.
Mhm.
And so the pathways have gotten smaller, fewer stops, right? They
No,
have to
actually,
make
there's
up
more stops.
More stops.
There's more stops. There's 3 routes now. And what the transit people have been doing a job. It's just about their responsiveness to the public. So the things that they're doing that are improving it, the stops now are timed. So you can go to a stop and you know that in an hour, within an hour, there's going to be a bus there. And they're eventually going to put schedules up so that you know when the bus is going to arrive. And that's really a key to a successful system. Before, it was just kind of like whenever they showed up. And that was a negative. So they've improved that. They're adding more security to the bus system. And they're also working to collect more data. And the data will actually help place the stops because they'll be able to eliminate some underperforming stops. So these are things they're working in a positive way. But the other part comes with the feedback. So you have a negative feedback. So there's a stop and it's in the wrong spot. You know, people have to get off and then they still have to walk 4 or 5 blocks. There's that, and then there's the transit center, like the mayor was saying, which is where they're building a transit center, and this has been going on for many, many years, and there's no lobby in the transit center, and it's kind of like that sticks in my craw. I'm like, well, why are you building this? And for several meetings at KMPO, I would ask them, can you tell me what's going to be in there? You know, how many offices are going to be in there? We don't know, and you know that's that's a funny answer. So, I don't know.
I'm wondering what, we'll go to Ron, and then I'll give you my thought. Go ahead, Ron.
Who's in charge of the transit center?
That's a wonderful question. So actually, in the county commissioner hierarchy, the way they run it, Mr. Eberline, Commissioner Eberline, is the one who oversees that department. But he doesn't make the decisions himself, the whole board makes the decisions. The transit center itself, and you have the letter in the packet, is from Ms. Beasy, and she's the director of not only the transit center, but also the grants program that's there as well.
Troy, let me ask you this. If the city of Coeur d'Alene didn't fund it, could they operate the transit system? No.
I can answer that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Because I've actually asked, and I sent an email to Ms. Beasy asking for a copy of their budget. And I got back this real confusing document, and I said, can you just give me a big picture? Can you give me a pie chart? Pie chart that shows income and a pie chart that shows expenses. And didn't get a response. Commissioner Eberline sent the same email. He didn't get a response either. So we don't know. All I've heard is that our funding helps provide funding for the Saturday service. Because they were going to cut out Saturday service, but when the mayor agreed to increase their funding, they can now run the Saturday service for the hours that were indicated in the staff report.
Well, who is this person that you mentioned?
If I may interrupt, everything that you have said tonight has gone directly to the program manager from Kootenai County that's with us. So based on the dialogue, I am going to throw in the towel and ask Jeanette to come forward to help with all the technical questions so that we can learn some more. Jeanette, this is the mayor and city council.
Thank you very much for your time. I'm a number cruncher, so some of the numbers I may not have, like ridership, I don't have all of those, but I can tell you a lot about the actual figures. Mr. Gookin, you have a fair amount of knowledge, and I appreciate that.
Jeanette, can I stop you just a second? Just your position with...
I'm program manager. Basically, I'm the accountant for the transit and GMO department.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
And could I clarify?
Yes,
So you are a county department?
Yeah, well, I am an accountant, and I
Okay.
work for the county.
But you're a county employee?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And have things changed? I mean, I'm assuming in terms of a budget question, every county department has a very detailed budget.
Yes, sir, we do.
So
And
that's,
Mr.
I mean, so it's knowable exactly what you spend in income and expenses?
Mr. Gookin has asked for a profit and loss, and I actually have one with me that I'd be more than happy to give you.
Yay.
Okay. Just so you know, the money that the cities have donated, all of the cities, that money is not used for operations at all, has not been. It is only used for the purchase of buses. We have to save the city donations for several years in order to be able to replace our buses. Buses cost $150,000. So for our little county, that's a lot of money. So none of the donations that you've given at all have gone to any kind of operational expense of the transit until we've asked for this money for the Saturday service. This will be the exception. Other than that, it's only to buy buses. If you don't mind, the bus stops, you talked about them being unplanned. We spent 2 years working with our GIS department, going over the ridership of each stop, who rides it, how far from one stop to the next stop. I sat through a meeting this past week on it with our GIS department because we're talking about possibly removing a stop, and that would mean people would have to walk more than a half a mile to a stop. I mean, this was all very well planned out. We spent 2 years. We hired a company to come in and do it. This was not, nothing was done pell-mell or just on anybody's whim. It was well planned out, well thought out. I understand your giving money and being concerned about oversight. As part of the transit department, we have worked on trying to make kind of a not as organized department be more organized. We've installed an intelligent transit system on our buses, so now we can tell where the bus is. You can pull up your app and you can see when the bus is coming. Very shortly, we're going to be installing passenger counters so we know exactly how many people get on what stop, how many people get off one stop. It'll be very accurate. Granted, it hasn't been in the past. My boss has only been there for, I think, since 2012. We've come a long way. We have a long way to go, and we understand that, but we're working toward that. We're trying. When we get complaints, we do take them seriously. They are not just thrown away. We answer them individually. This week, my coworker had somebody come into the office and said, my son is challenged, and he doesn't know how to ride the bus. My coworker sat with him and showed him how the route would come, when it would come, when he should pick it up, when he should get off, and then volunteered to meet with him personally, individually, to ride the route with him, so he would know how to get on, how to get off. This is a service we provide to the community. Now, please understand, we are a department of 4.5 people. We have one part-time person. Of that department, 2.2 people are devoted to transit. 2.3 people are devoted to the other grants that the county runs. So we're running this huge transit system with 2 people. Granted, things are not maybe as perfect as they could be. We're working on bus stops. We've asked for funding. We're trying to get that so we can build bus stops, so we can make sure every bus stop is ADA compliant. We have identified those that are not, and we want to change that. We're somewhat limited by funding, and we're somewhat limited by staff. The transit center, granted, it has been in the works for a very long time, I agree. We are not proposing a lobby at this time because we don't want it to be a hangout for people. It's not some place for somebody to come live. There will be shelters for people to get out of the cold, the rain, the whatever, but it's not a place for homeless people to hang out or anybody else to hang out. It's not
You
going to be
realize that's a
Senate-
Title VI violation there. That's the same excuse that people have been using, are accused of using for moving a bus stop, and the response that I've heard from the transit people is, well, we can't move a bus stop because you complain about those people. But it seems like at the same time, the county staff uses the phrase, those people, to refer to their reason not to have a lobby. Do you see the separation there?
And I apologize, maybe I misspoke, but the idea is not, and you can talk to your library people here, do they have people that come and just hang out at the library for hours and hours and hours? We don't mind people coming and
Yes,
picking
they
up
do.
We don't mind people coming to pick up a stop. It is a bus stop. It's a transit bus hub. It is not a place for people to come and hang out for hours and hours. And we think that would increase crime, and that's what we're asking not to do.
Excuse me, you talked about that there's going to be shelters for people to get out of the elements.
there will
What would those shelters be?
You know, we're asking very preemptively, and Mr. Gookin has asked about the offices as well. Just this week, we've gotten to the point of choosing the engineering firm, and the contract will be awarded hopefully next week. As far as offices, we have no idea. We have a transit staff of 4 people. We're not
Again,
talking.
my question is, what would, so you don't know right now what
All
those,
of that would be part of the design by the engineers and the architect.
I would imagine there are transit centers and bus stops that are built all over the country, right?
We actually toured one in Boise, Valley Transit, and we toured their facility. It's a new place. And they have the same kind of situation. There's not a lobby for people to hang out. People come in and out. There are benches outside for the people to wait for the buses. The bathroom has a locked key for people to ask for permission to use it, so everything is as secure as it can be. But yes, we have toured other facilities as well.
When I met with Dan Green 3 years ago, and he showed me the plans for the transit center at that time, and actually there was a controversy that was going on, because the county was going to be subleasing part of the transit center to vendors, like, you know, a coffee shop, maybe a place to sell souvenirs and that thing. And that was really controversial, you know, is the county going to be a landlord, et cetera? And so the plan that he showed me at the time showed a lobby, and it had a wall for vending machines, and that's what the leasing part turned out to be. But it's morphed so much since then to have this, you know, this thing where they don't know how many offices, they got 4 people, but they don't know how many offices will be in the thing. And then you hear it, and I'm not picking on you, because I hear this all the time. I hear it from Jody, and I hear it from Karen, is that, you know, you spend 2 years studying where the stops are, but only now you're studying whether they're ADA compliant.
Oh,
And
no,
it's-
we studied that long before, sir. That was part of the concept when we were doing the bus stops.
It's been 2 years, but now all of a sudden, there are stops that do need to be moved because of that, which tells me that either you didn't fully study for 2 years, or the study was really weak.
We're not
So-
moving a stop because of it being ADA compliant.
You just said that.
Let me make a suggestion here, is that I think there is enough information, and we don't have all of the parties here to answer all the questions. They kind of brought you here to take all of the questions, and it's a controversial topic with a lot of moving parts. I think if council is up for it, and we have some other issues that we could discuss with the county, but I think this would be a very important to bring the county commissioners, bring the staff and council together for a workshop where we have time to, because this issue is important enough, I think, to spend a lot more time on it than we probably have tonight. And I think there's an issue, a funding issue before us now. I think that, I can't speak for everybody, but I think everyone feels good about that because we passed it in our budget. But there are a lot of issues that are on the table. I think that could be better served if we had the commissioners here, if we have had some other staff here, because I don't think you can answer all the questions that people may have. I think that
Yes.
might be the fair route to go, and just wanted to see if council agreed with that.
So can we make a motion to table this until such time that we can have a workshop?
You could do that right now.
Yeah, you can make whatever motion or you would like.
Is that what? Okay, then I'd make a motion that we table the transportation funding until we have an opportunity to have a workshop with the county and discuss the elements of the agreement and the responsiveness between the two entities.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion on that item. Yeah.
Well,
Wait,
just,
if
I would,
Kiki doesn't have anything to say, then the reason I would second this is because I would prefer that council had the same information that I have moving forward, which would be to interact with the commissioners and with the rest of the county transit staff to kind of get a better feeling for what it is I'm talking about and understand what the city's role could be. If we go ahead and approve the funding tonight, I think there would be less incentive for them to be cooperative at that time. They would be like, well, the big hurdle's over. So that's my feeling.
Dan?
well, just to make the statement that, again, I'm in favor of our original motion tonight, but I'm also, a couple of things, I'm in favor of tabling because it sounds like there is a lot of kind of issues to discuss, and I guess my input for the county is that I'm certainly hoping that there will be a very public and open process on some of those decisions, especially when it comes to the, if not the exact design of that center, the whole concept that who is it serving, and the concept that, I mean, I've been to a lot of public transportation things, and you expect to go in and get out of the weather and have some heat and things, so I'm hoping that they're going to have a very open mind about some of those things, so I think the joint workshop sounds good.
So is there any other discussion on Kiki's motion? Renata, would you like a roll call on that motion?
Sure.
There you go.
Ettinger,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yep.
English.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is carried to table the decision on this until our joint workshop with the county. And Jim, you'll work to schedule that with Commissioner Eberlein? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your work on that. And I want to thank you, too, for coming and answering the questions, and there's,
She drew the short straw, because, I mean, Jody and Karen will not talk to me.
but you did a great job. Thank you for being here tonight. So, okay, we have executive session left tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I move to enter into executive session under Idaho Code 74-206F to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please. Renata?
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin. English.
Yes.
Ettinger.
Yep.
Motion carried. We will go to executive session.
Who wants to read that?